All right, welcome to episode 28 of my live stream. This is the live stream, Joshua Kemble's live stream, where I work on book 2 of 2 stories. Book 1, 2 stories, is out from Marcosia, my publisher, and it was released in December, and you can get a copy on Amazon.com. It is graphic memoir that grapples with questions of faith, mental illness, depravity, and ultimately redemption in a fallen world, with really detailed artwork, and it's about 124 pages. I keep getting that page count wrong, but I know it's over 120 pages. And it took me about 5 years to execute. I'm working on, so you'll notice this says book 1. Hold on. Book 1 right there. And now I'm working on book 2. So that's what this live stream is. It's basically, I'm a freelance illustrator, graphic designer, been doing professional art for about over 15 years and have worked as a professional art director for over 6. And then when I'm not working doing both of those things, I'm working on this comic, carving away at it a page at a time, in my free time, if there is such a thing. So, okay. Right now, what I'm working on are the thumbnails and roughs. I'm kind of combining the two, rough pencils and thumbnails, for the entire second book. And I'm up to thumbnails for page 101 is what I'm going to be working on today. What you're seeing on the screen is actually page 100. And yeah, so let's get into it. Let me see. So the beauty of this is I'm actually on the second to last chapter of the entire book for this part of the process. And after I'm done with roughs and thumbnails, I'll go on to do tight lettering, tight panel borders, and then gather photo reference, references of all kinds if I can find them, and shoot them myself. And then after that, what I'll do is go on to kind of finalize the pages. And the only reason I do this intro every time is you never know when you're getting like a new viewer. And so for anybody who might be possibly new, I want to let you in on what this whole thing is. So this live stream, I basically just live stream while working. It's fairly late. It's like 11. I had an indie review show on Scott Cirklin's channel, which you can actually check out at circworks.com. But eventually that's going to migrate over to IRS Agency, which will take you to where all our YouTube videos are hosted, because we have an indie review show channel. So go to irsagency.com if you want to see a really cool review of Three Shadows, which is just this beautiful book. And then aside from that, we're just going to basically get into it and start working. So, okay, here we go. And then I'll just probably talk about some stuff on my mind. One of the things was just a weird news article I read this morning that a bunch of people are apparently trying to melt snow with fire, and think that by doing that, and the fact that it's avoiding turning into liquid, is somehow proving that the snow is fake, which so anyhow, I want to talk about that because I think it's just fascinating and insane, and also just shows like a lack of knowledge about science and stuff like that. But I'll probably talk about that a little bit, and then if people show up in the chats and have questions or direct the conversation elsewhere, that's great too. Before getting into anything, though, what I'm going to do is get into my script and breaking it down for these pages, for this next page. And my hope tonight is, if I can't finish a page, I want to at least get halfway through without burning out. So that's the goal. And thanks for showing up, and let's get into it. That coffee is good. All right, so this is the point I'm at on the script. And just to highlight how cool that is. It's hard to see, but you can see like where I've marked off things. And this part, that's the part we're on. I usually fold my pages so they're easier to prop up. And that means it's literally like, here's my stack of script papers, right? That's what's finished. That's what I have left. This is the page I'm on. Wow. Whew, that was quite a sneeze. Been working in the yard too, so my allergies have been going haywire and crazy. All right, so here we go. First step, if you guys are familiar and have been watching these streams, is for me to take the previous page and I break down the panels into easily chunkable sections so I can kind of see what I had previously put down, and then the sequence will sequentially hopefully follow a little bit of what I did in the past. So I'm not having to reinvent the wheel with like locations and stuff. You might also notice that throughout this process, I might pull from pages from the previous book because this is all like, this is the final chapter. It's not really the final chapter. It's the second to last chapter, but this is definitely the climax of the entire story. And then the full resolution is like chapter 11. So weirdly enough, it's the one time in life where you want to probably get to chapter 11. Okay. Okay, so here we go. And let's get into this business. And what I'm going to do is also move the chat out of the way. Kind of reduce that window down so that I can kind of focus on the work, getting the work done. All right, here we go. So I kind of think the one panel, yeah, this is the panel sequence that we're going to be reflecting from the previous page. So the last line was, she was extremely overloaded. And this is kind of giving a window into some of the relational conflicts that happened after the two characters kind of moved into separate states. And if you want to know more about that, pick up the first book, 2 stories. All right, so here we go. And this is going to be kind of keeping that tall and thin panel sequence in 4s that I started on the previous page. So I'm glad I pulled up and broke down those pages. And this part, I want to get into that snow topic, so bear with me. This part might take a wee bit of time, but it won't take that much time. Let's see that last. Line it up. Line it up. And these are thumbnails and roughs, so they don't need to be finished and perfect, basically. But what I should do is probably reduce this size so that it'll fit across. This is like the poor man's version of measuring it out first. When I get into the next phase of the process, once I'm done with these thumbnails and roughs, that's when I really will start ruling out all of these borders and kind of working them out. What I tend to do is do all that in Illustrator, and I'm excited about getting to that process because that should allow me to get a lot more progress in a night than like a page. My goal so far has been to try to do a page a night. Oh, I forgot to mention, I'm doing the 100 Days of Making Comics Challenge too, which was started by my friend Kevin Cross. And actually, he just posted a really hilarious video on his kind of secret YouTube channel called the Accidental Kickflip, where him and his buddy are making these hilarious skate related videos that I think are amazing. Okay, so here we go. So let's start. This is the boring part where I have to write, and then I can get into the topic. Okay. I am really excited about that book that Scott brought up on the IRS show, though, irsagency.com. It was pretty cool to get a glimpse into it, and I think I'm going to have to pick that book up at some point. Trying to recover from bouts of depression and anxiety. So these books cover pretty heavily they get pretty heavily into topics of mental illness, and they are definitely not all ages books. So I recommend probably 15 or older for the book, but I definitely wouldn't buy this for like a 6-year-old. Yeah. Okay. So that's the first. Kind of wanting to pull from, yes. A little bit of that scene. I like this location. Just want to keep this it's in the forefront. So I'm going to have that location over here just so I can reference it. And then I'm going to pull a little bit more over. I also want to draw someone here. So here I'm just roughly working out the sequence, like where that's going to be. Then I need to have a figure here. It's going to be sort of curled. Okay. And we're just sketching out the figure, working out the sequence, trying to think of how to do it in a very, hopefully, emotionally impactful way. And still kind of tell the narrative. And hopefully this won't be too on the nose. All right, so let's talk about snow. So apparently after all the stuff that has been going on, for those of you who aren't in the US, there's like a um, giant snowstorm, like ridiculously crazy snowstorm that hit Texas pretty bad. And their utilities weren't quite prepared for it. And so basically, all electric, from what I gather and understand, kind of went out. So there's a conspiracy theory that's going around lately that it's not real snow, that like somehow the snow is fake snow and it's being used to kind of create this terrible situation for like political reasons. I haven't really read much of the conspiracy, but I just heard that like on TikTok and on hey, Frank survived. I'm glad you survived, Frank. How are you doing, man? Sounds like you have electricity, which is good. So yeah, apparently there's this trend on like TikTok of people holding a lighter to frozen snow and then just being like, why isn't it turning to liquid? It's because it's fake snow. It's this crazy. It's just insane to me. And maybe like, I mean, it does look really cool when you do this. I remember as a kid actually doing that, like, and I remember in science classes also doing that, like in high school. Um, but so what it turns out is the process that everybody's like freaking out and thinking it's fake snow. It's actually exactly how snow behaves when held to fire. Uh, Frank was like, people discovered the weather machine. Yeah, I think that's part of the theory. So anyhow, it's called sublimation. And it's basically the same process kind of in reverse happens if you like walk outside on a cold day where, you know, when you're breathing, you're basically creating like the gas form of water. Like when you breathe, like you have tons of water in your system, and when you breathe, it creates the vapor form of water, right? Um, and water has like three forms, right? Everybody kind of knows that. Like when you boil a pot of water, you can see two of the forms, right? It goes from liquid to vapor. And then when you freeze water, right, it goes from liquid to frozen solid, right? But there's this weird thing that happens when you have a dramatic shift in temperature with water. Like, you know, from, and keep in mind, I'm not like a scientist. This is just my understanding from like basic biology classes. But it's like, from what I gather, when you have an extreme shift, like when you walk out from like a warm room and you breathe vapor and it's like freezing cold outside, it skips the stage, the middle stage of liquid, and goes straight to frozen. That actually happens a lot when somebody walks out in an extremely cold environment from a warm environment. The transition, I'm not sure what degrees of difference, but sometimes the transition is so extreme that it causes it to skip the water stage and just go directly to freezing. So when there's a sudden shift in temperature, it can skip the liquid stage. When there's a sudden shift in temperature, like snow exposed to fire, it skips the liquid stage and it becomes vapor. So that's the mysterious thing that people are posting conspiracy theories based on. Like, why isn't this becoming water again? Why isn't it melting? Well, it's because you're exposing it to such a transition in temperature. That's why. So why do people want to believe that that is something other than a natural process? And then why wouldn't they do the due diligence and see, hey, does this happen to like snow everywhere? Is this just Texan snow, or is this like all snow? And if it's all snow, then maybe your theory of this being like some targeted attack on the state is off. But then again, there are people out there who believe like the world is flat and believe a lot of strange things that, within a quick, like 2-second Google search can be, disproven. So I don't know, but I thought that was interesting. So anyhow, that was one thing that I was that was on my mind, mainly because I read that story right before for going online. But I don't know. Let me know what you think in the chats. Like, do you guys think yeah. Frank's doing a callback to 48-hour art check. I believe books are round. So Corey Kerr and I did a show called the 48-hour art check, and we were talking about some bizarre conspiracy theories and how you can pretty much like posit any notion that so like in reasoning there was a basic premise of falsifiability. Like, in order to actually posit that something is true, it usually needs to be falsifiable. And if it's not falsifiable, then the burden of proof kind of rests on the person making the claim. Like, perfect case in point, if I made the claim that I can't fly, that would be falsifiable. Or if I made the claim that I could fly, that would be falsifiable. So that's a testable claim, right? Where it's like you can find out pretty quickly whether there's any merit to that claim or not. But if I made like a wacky, extraordinary claim that's not falsifiable, like hey, when you're not looking, I fly 10 feet off the ground. But when you look, I'm back on the ground. And you'd have no idea that I flew. But I did. You just weren't looking. And I can only do it when people aren't looking. Like, if I made a claim like that, that's not falsifiable. Like, you can't prove me wrong. Like, I mean, you really can't, right? Like, especially if I'm like, yeah, and if I'm being videotaped, like, it's not going to happen. If you're secretly observing me, you're not going to catch it because it's just not something anybody sees, but it just happens when you're not looking. So if I make a claim like that and it's not falsifiable, it's an easy claim to make. And to someone who's not thinking like super clearly, like, it might seem really reasonable because it's like, yeah, well, you can't really prove that he wasn't flying, But anyhow, point being, falsifiability is important for truth and for science. Like, if something's not falsifiable, then it's not really solid science. So anyhow, keep in mind that's a good claim, where it's a good claim is a testable claim. So point being, we were joking, Corey and I, that like, it's sad because a lot of conspiracy theories, like, you could just kind of create out of thin air and possibly create like a thing. And we were joking we would create a conspiracy theory that books actually are not flat, that they're round, and that there is a book conspiracy to try to convince the world that books are flat, or even though they're really round. So that's a very long-winded explanation, Frank, of what you were doing a callback to. How are you doing, Frank? How's it going, man? I hope everything's okay. I hope your power's on. I hope, I just hope everything's okay. That must have been a crazy, crazy set of time there. All right. So there we go. That's why I turned it upside down, was just drawing a character in that kind of pose is hard to do. Okay, and I think I'm going to do a little bit of, I might even do like a little throwback to that. So in the first book, there's like, I mean, a lot of people, when they suffer from depression or anxiety, they'll kind of describe it as like a dark cloud. Um, there's a lot of people, they'll call it like a passenger or a cloud or something like that. But it's like these intrusive thoughts that are really the mental illness and not you. Um, and so in the last book, when I got into a sequence that got into like especially panic disorder and mental illness and stuff, I sort of depicted it as this like almost like smoke monster kind of thing. I just made myself sound really old because I'm like referencing Lost. but but anyhow, so I did this like kind of creeping black kind of goo, almost like Venom's alien costume. And I want to pull that back a little bit, so I'm going to kind of draw just some subtle references to it. Like I don't want it to be something that is too on the nose, and maybe it's more subtle, like it's very, very slightly in there, but I'm pulling it back. Frank said, I'm doing good. Power came back on last Wednesday. Church lost power that day. Got it back in time for Sunday. That's good to know, man. Yeah, that's a tough thing to like lose power. We've had like a brownout that lasted like 6 hours, and that was rough. You know, it was very rough. Sweet. Okay. Okay. So then let's get into the next panel. What's that going to be? So this is just like a very quick sort of sequence catching you up to my character who's being all judgy of my fiance at the time, feeling abandoned and terrible and kind of not considering these different things that she was having to deal with when having moved back to California at the time in the story. Let's see here. Okay. So this is going to be trying to recover. Here we go. And trying. Oh, did not want to. We're on page 101, though. I'm pretty excited about that. And save up. So saving money, this is an interesting one because, I mean, like, if you think about like a film like Up, it's like they literally had like a jar. And so that was like the non-verbal way of showing saving money. However, this is a pretty slice of life story, so I can't have the trope of just like a jar. You're not saving money in a jar. Let me think about this for a second. Saving money. I'm just going to see if there are icons or things people use frequently for that. Yeah, it's always the jar, pennies, that kind of thing. You know what might work? Would like a calculator work? Would that be too on the nose? Trying to think of like a visual for that. Definitely don't want it to just be like money in a jar. That's too obvious. Hmm. I'm curious, like honestly, tonight I may not get through a whole page. I might just do like the top row, or we'll see. I'm thinking I'm probably going to do about an hour on the stream because I just don't want to burn out, and I can definitely feel like I'm on that fine point where I'm like I've been putting in about 4 hours a night and 3 to 4 hours, maybe two at minimum, and it's just like I need to be healthy tomorrow so I can sustain the output. So we'll see. But congrats on showing up and doing your hundreds. I've also said that in the past and sometimes finished the page, so who knows? Save up enough money. I kind of want this to be, hmm, you know what? I'm gonna have her at the computer because in reality, most people watching their budgets now are doing that on a computer. How's it going, Mama Soto? How you doing? What are you up to? I hope you're having a good night. We're working on comics. What are you working on? All right, so let's see here. Remove this. And Frank, now that you've logged in your time, are you still working on your comic? What are you up to right now? Okay, so yeah, so I think that's like less on the nose, and I think people will understand that. It's a shot of her kind of like late at night. Maybe it's like the pigtail here. And we have like kind of have our little lines figure with just kind of like clicking a mouse looking at the screen of a computer, because I actually think that just reflects it more, and then I can kind of angle it a little bit so it's more interesting, less straight on. um oh wow, doing all right, thanks. Trying to get my office in order post Harvard. Still behind. Wow. So you got hit by all the power outages too? Jeez. Installing some free brushes from Clip Studio. Wow. Yeah, that's got to be hard to catch up after something like that. Like where I work, like if there's a power outage, it's hard to catch up, and like I said, they don't tend to last like long periods of time. That's rough. Um so yeah, I just went through with Frank how I read an article about people melting snow. Like, have you experienced any of that? People like burning snow and pretending that means it's fake or something. I I don't know if you're in Texas too. I'm guessing you probably are. Originally from Chicago, hopefully Texas gets its act together, but after 30 years here, it's still the same. Yeah, okay, Houston. Yeah, that makes sense. Um, I lived in Texas for a little bit as a kid when I was very, very little. Um, I have some vague memories of it that were kind of cool. It was like I think we were kind of close to. It wasn't quite Fort Worth, but it was in the Fort Worth area. We lived off this like lake, and I remember a couple really cool things and some really weird things that like as a kid didn't seem weird, but as an adult seemed weird. So tell me, You guys are in Texas. Does this strike true? Well, I'm sure Fort Worth too is a little different than like Houston, like culturally. So they had this big thing called Mayfest, and it was awesome. It was like really fun as a kid. I don't know if they do that. Maybe that was a Fort Worth thing, but they used to do like a big May festival, and they'd have like bathtub races in like the river, which was really cool, and like a big maypole. It was just super fun as a kid. Like I just remember that very vividly. Do you guys have anything like that, or is that just like specifically Fort Worth? Do you guys do Mayfests? I definitely feel like a person who my conception, because like I said, my conception of it is probably pretty wrong, because I was like 6 when we left, so it's pretty much like, well, maybe it was 7. I can't remember. I think I was there for like 2 years, but definitely kindergarten. I went to kindergarten in Texas. But anyhow, so I remember. Let me know if you guys have Mayfests. They had the other thing that strikes my memory is every stop sign had like a bullet hole in the O. Like there would just be multiple bullet holes in like most of the signs in our area. And people would drive with like legit like gun racks. And we had a neighbor who had a farm with horses, and we'd feed him apples. And then what else? Oh yeah, I had a class, like in kindergarten. I remember learning about secession, and like they were really big on secession, like. And also really like there's something about, and I'm gonna get this wrong probably, but they taught something about how they hang the flag. Anyhow, it was just interesting, where they were basically saying like there's something unique about the way Texans hang the Texan flag as opposed to like the U.S. flag. So yeah, she's like, that's quite Fort Worth and Dallas, not so much Houston, unless you get to outskirts of Houston. Yeah, that's probably the thing is, and also this was like the early 80s, so it's like, I'm sure it's shifted a lot. Where I'd love to be, I mean, not right now. Well, now that power's back up. But I have a lot of friends who live in Austin, and that just sounds like my kind of town. I mean, Austin just sounds rad. South by Southwest. I mean, I'm sure they got hit pretty hard this year with COVID and stuff, especially South by Southwest getting canceled. Like for poster artists and stuff out there, that was like shattering and terrible. But Austin is so my jam. Like I would love to go there, particularly for South by Southwest. That would be really fun. But I have a feeling that would be kind of the Texas I could do. Let me see. I want to hear your guys' Texas stories. Like, Frank, did you grow up in Texas? Because Mama Soto was saying from Chicago, which, by the way, I also have a lot of family roots in Chicago. Like my dad grew up in Illinois, and my grandpa, weirdly enough, was on my dad's side, was a street preacher in Chicago, like back in the day, which is not like the most viable. But my dad had like a lot of cool stories about Chicago, because the area he lived in was Lucky Luciano's neighborhood. And so they went caroling one time, because I guess this is what you did back in the 50s as a kid. Like him and his friends had like a quartet or whatever. Like they'd make some side money just doing like caroling, like door to door. And they ended up caroling at Luciano's house and getting invited in, and like one of them had to use the restroom, and the whole bathroom was like plated in gold. But he said it was like the safest neighborhood because like nobody was gonna pull like petty crime in that neighborhood. But what a weird, I don't know. He also had some really cool stories because he went to the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. And at the time he went, it was in like the basement of the Art Institute of Chicago. So when they would like study paintings, like, you know, it'd be like they'd have like night classes where like the museum was closed and they'd get to like draw like from like the masters, like by going just up a couple, you know, steps and stuff. It's crazy. So like a lot of Frank Lloyd Wright houses and stuff, buildings and stuff. And then Frank Lloyd Wright actually came into one of my dad's classes because he also studied architecture. And like Frank Lloyd Wright like did a guest lectureship. My dad talked about it like this kind of guy came in with like a big cape because he used to wear a cape in his older age. And so he came in with like this sweeping cape and did this like crazy awesome thing. This is interesting. No way. So this is hilarious. Your dad might know my dad. That's fascinating. Might have known my dad. That's crazy. Small world. Anyhow, but Texas is really fascinating to me. I also remember cactus candy was like a big thing in our area, but like as a kid, I'm sure it's bigger, but cactus candy was bomb. And then I also remember going to Riverwalk, which was really cool as a kid. I don't know if it holds up, like if that's still a great destination, but as a kid, that was so cool because you'd go in stores and they had like glass floors so you could actually see the river under the store. That was pretty cool. And they had these big like plastic boats that kind of felt like the boats at like It's a Small World at Disneyland, but they kind of went through the city. But yeah. And then I'm trying to think of anything else. Anything else. You guys should tell me about Texas rather than me telling you about Texas. But it was really pretty at night. Like Riverwalk was just gorgeous. It had like these lights, and I mean, clearly it was cool because, like I said, I was like 5, and I still have those like memories just implanted of just how pretty it was. There was also I was curious. I was talking about Texas the other day to like Corey, and there used to be this chain of restaurants that were really fun to go to as a kid called Casa Bonita. And I looked it up online, and I don't think it exists anymore. But it was the coolest like place to go as a kid. They had like pretty decent, pretty authentic Mexican food. But I think like the cool thing was you could go there and like they had this whole fake cave, and like it had a whole fake outdoors. So you're indoors, but it felt like outdoors. And this whole series of like caves and like an outdoor patio type feel, even though you're indoors, it was all like a fake environment. And anyhow, it was just really cool and stunning and fun for a kid, you know, because they'd also have like magic shows where like magicians, not like high-end magicians, these were like, you know, like the typical magic hat wearing magicians. Actually, it is funny. I do have a lot of memories from Texas. What else? We had neighbors that were in a bluegrass band, and that was awesome. Like they would play these shows that were like at like a barbecue joint, where you would go and you'd get like barbecue and you'd watch like a whole dinner theater type thing, and then these bluegrass bands would play. and that was cool too. I still remember that, especially if I ever hear "I'll Fly Away," that bluegrass song, because it's like our neighbor used to like we'd go over to their house and hang out while they were kind of jamming like bluegrass and and yeah. But anyhow, that was a long time ago. Um, but yeah, very cool. We lived on a lake, so Mama Soto for Riverwalk said it's still a good place. That's cool. What's the best? So Rio Grande Valley area, Frank, and then Laredo. Okay, nice. Um, so what's your favorite thing to do in Houston? I still for my day job we do a lot of art for Houston locations. Um, but I'm kind of curious, like, what would be your favorite? Yeah, right. Will be nice to go out to eat at a restaurant soon. We miss that. Yeah, that's funny. I'm not like a big, because I think as creatives we're pretty shut in people, but it's like um it would be nice to like just have that vibe of like just people. I miss going to the local microbrewery too, just to have like a drink and like just hear people talking, even if you're meeting with a friend or not. It's just like people watching, hearing other people. Um, yeah, it's been an interesting ride. But I'm curious, Frank, what's the best thing to do in your area? The best thing to do when COVID's not going on? And then Mama Soto, what's your favorite what's your favorite Texan thing? I do remember the food being really good, and they don't kid about the barbecue. The barbecue's no joke. Um, but it's been a long time. It'd be fun to take a trip to Texas. I think you know, yeah, right? Engaging in real life. But what's weird is this now real life? Not to get into like a Queen song and just be like, is this just fantasy? Caught in a landslide, no escape from reality. But it is crazy like that. This is potentially like the new norm for a long time if we can't get our act together as a country. um, Frank, I went to Chinese buffet. It was a different experience, but good to get out. Yeah, Chinese food's bomb. There's a really good Chinese food place near here. Um, save up enough money, but I'm glad you guys are okay after all that craziness. Did so how did you guys like Frank, how did you stay warm? Like what did you do to kind of battle the crazy cold? um Fireplace, I hope. I don't know. Let's see. Okay. So we got this next part. And this I want to be another shot of like her at the computer. But like with like a side view maybe. Add a couple of blankets, San Marcos blankets that are comfortable. Second night stayed at your church. That's smart, man. Did they have a power or a generator going? That is, yeah, that must have been, it's just crazy to think, you know? I think Frank, or Mama Soto, like, I think you guys should consider doing a comic about that whole experience because it's just so crazy and unique, you know? Like, it would be interesting to just hear like a story like Frank. I'd love to hear you do like a story about like how I survived the Texas, like, you know, um, thing. Cause I mean, that's a unique situation. It's fascinating. Like, I would love to read just like that as a story. Just a thought. I'm trying to get everybody to do auto bio. Hey, how's it going? Okay, Mama Soto is sharing how she stayed warm in Texas. All right, we got Crimson Owl. How's your comic coming? Any more Victorian buildings? Ronnie is working on a really cool horror comic that I'm excited to see more of. If you've done more, send us a sneak peek, man. Use my art craft styrofoam form board sheets in the garage to insulate the windows. Girl Scout mode kicked in. Yeah, dude. That is the way to do it. Is like just kind of rock through that. Crimson Owl probably getting ready for work. Glad to be a spot you stop before heading to work. So being in Texas, have you guys run across anyone who like is melting snow and thinking it's fake? I'm curious. Nice. Mama Soto, my mom was from Mercedes, so she would go to Westmer. I have no idea what these places are, but I'm curious. Because when I hear Mercedes living in California, I'm like, the Benz, like the car? Like, I need to know these things. I need to know more about Texas, even though I used to live there. I would love to go visit. It'd be fun to take Ben to like 4 Points or whatever. And then maybe like a little bit deep into Texas for like, the problem is Texas is so vast. You could like drive like one end of Texas and not reach the other for like a very long time. Like by the time I'd get to the other side of Texas, I could be in Colorado already if I took a different route. But it is beautiful. I mean, it's like it's a cool, just very like interesting state, you know. That's good. I'm glad you're not coming across that stuff. Um, Ronnie, I was talking about like I read a news article where there's people who are burning snow like with fire, and because the snow, goes through sublimation, but the people are unaware of like what scientifically like sublimation is, where water switches, it kind of skips the state because of extreme weather. So it's like when you go out and it's really cold and your breath turns into ice, it doesn't like have a process of becoming liquid because it's just such a quick transfer. So because of the fire right next to snow, it just turns into vapor instantly. It doesn't melt like it. And it's a cool thing. You can do it like as like a science experiment with snow. But people are doing this on like TikTok and they're like, see, it's fake. Like the Democrats sent the snow. It's anyhow, it's just interesting what people will believe. Okay, so let me get I thought that was funny. I don't know. maybe it's not funny, but it was interesting that people have are susceptible to like conspiratorial thinking. Used to make ice cream with snow. I remember making ice cream with snow. Actually, that's another memory from Texas. When we lived like near Fort Worth and got snow, we would get like a clear area of snow, or you would just put like a styrofoam cup out and let the snow fill it, and then go inside and like pour syrup on it. It was a bomb when you were a kid. May not be the most healthy thing, but it was fun. Hoping to throw boiling water to make powder snow, but we only got 9 degrees. Needs to be 20. That's awesome, though. That's pretty fun. I've done that like once in my life. That's right, Frank. That's right. But you got to keep that on the down low. That's with like the round books and stuff. Yeah, that's true. Eating snow, it's the best. Yes, fair point. There's a couple colors of snow you don't want to eat. Frankly, if the snow has any color at all, other that like, yeah, you just basically just don't eat green snow either, like unless maybe you mix dye with it or something. Um, let's see here. This is just showing like focus, and that was the worst fist in the world, and now I need to resketch that arm, because if that fist is here, okay, there we go. Voila, much better. Okay. Ooh, Ronnie, can I share that page with the folks at home? Ronnie said he sent me a finished page with no dialogue, and I really want to see it. We've been getting little sneak peeks. Oh man, that looks amazing. Okay, if I get the okay, I will throw it up there. But I need the okay from Ronnie. But that looks really cool. So was that was kind of the one thing? Do you guys have access to Mama Soto? Did you guys have access to like a fireplace or anything like that to like keep some of the warming? I really do think that would make a great short comic. Just how you guys got through it. Like I can just even envision like a comic sequence showing the boarding up and taping of the windows to kind of keep warm. Like it's just, I don't know. It's gotta be done. I'm sure somebody's gonna do it, but I would totally do that for yeah, I was like yeah, I was thinking about like what would I do in that scenario, and the one thing I realized was like we have a fireplace. Like I was like realizing like that's a pretty good thing to have if like all else goes to crap, you know. Although weirdly enough, I think our worries would be on the other end because things get cold in the AV, but like it's definitely very desert here the way our weather is. So I think my worry would be more like us having, you know, like a power outage and then like just dealing with the heat because it gets like almost Arizona levels of hot in our area. Not quite Arizona levels though. Like I remember a couple years back, Scott was telling me that his rear view mirror, like on his car, melted off the car. Like it just, the glue just melted, so the rear view mirror just fell off. I was like, that is crazy heat. And I remember seeing footage. This was a couple of years back, but they had like a really crazy heat wave, and there was like pictures of recycling bins that had just literally melted, because the cans in the recycling bins got so hot they like melted, you know. And I don't know much about plastic, but those bins are pretty sturdy. So like something so hot it melted them. That's kind of crazy. We don't have that bad of heat, but it's close. It's pretty bad. It gets in the hundreds, you know. People were collecting snow in their tubs for water too, since that was out for days. Yeah, that's smart. I can do a comic would just be me searching for a way to charge my phone to contact, let her know the power was out and might not stream. Yeah, that must have been hard too, find a little spot for charger. But I'm just glad you were able to stay warm and get through it. Okay, we're at the hour mark. When I get to the hour mark on the stream, I always take like a 20-second break to refill my coffee, and I will be shortly back. So I appreciate it, you guys coming in the chats, and bear with me. I'll be back in like 20 seconds. It's a fun conversation too. Let's see. Okay. Oh, let me see. Oh, I got the go ahead from Ronnie to share that page. I should have thrown it up before taking a break. So this is Ronnie, what he's working on. I will just show you guys. It's looking pretty darn cool. That looks gorgeous, man. Very nice. So he's doing this thing where it flashes to different eras in time, and one time period's in black and white, and then the other is in color. And that's just really cool. I like the texture and the look. I like that Victorian building. Very nice, man. Thank you for sharing that. Pretty awesome. I love it. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, Mama Soto said nice. Yeah. Oh, Corpus Christi? Is that? I'm trying to remember. Okay, so yeah, the textures, yeah, They're really nice. I like it. It has like a cool kind of vibe to it. Yeah, definitely unique. All right, so let me throw this part next in here. I'll get the text in. Um, yeah, I remember as a little kid going to the Alamo too. That was super fun as a kid, because like Texans are very, from what I remember, but I remember in school, like they were very big fans of Davy Crockett, and I got like a little Bowie knife, like like a souvenir Bowie knife that as a kid I was just like, yeah, this is the coolest. Corpus Christi feels really familiar. Is that close or that must be far away? I don't know. I need to re-familiarize myself with the landscape. I wonder if it's like that for people outside of California too, where they like think of like San Francisco and like Hollywood as like the same. Like even though they're like because my conception of Texas is very much like that. Like I kind of have a rough idea of Austin. I think is like far. Tell me if I'm off, but like so you have the continent of Texas. I think Austin's like down here, kind of like north southeast. Actually, it's probably southwest, right? Because it's south by southwest. And then I think of like Houston is more like central, like toward the top, in the middle. And then I think of like I think where I used to live was more on like the left side of the state, kind of like bottom left. But anyhow, the point being, like my conception of Texas is like as bad as if somebody thought that like San Francisco and Los Angeles are like right next to each other. Oh, nice. Alamo for the first time a few years ago. Yeah, I went there as a kid and it was just really cool. Um, I vaguely remember it. I remember it just being cool because like when you're a kid, it's like really cool to have like guns and all this. Like I think there were cannons and it's just really cool. um, Houston is east on the Gulf Coast. Okay, that would make sense. See, my brain is just bad when it comes to like locations, and ironically, I'm like that with anywhere I haven't like directly lived uh, as a young adult. I don't think you guys ride horses or have cows, but I do. And once again, this is only based on when I lived there. I do think that there is the Texan tie, and like most Texans do rock a pair of boots. Like I even had a pair of cowboy boots when I lived there as a kid, and it wasn't like novelty. It was just like, yeah, you got to have boots. um, People have no concept of Houston. They think Cowboys, think more of Dallas, and have no clue. Yeah, it's huge. Okay, so to be fair, I have been to Houston recently though. Like, so the airport, only the airport, but that airport is amazing. I mean, it's crazy. It's like, so I had to go there to transfer to I think a flight in like Denver, but we stopped off in Houston, and the airport itself is like a city. It's like it just felt like a city of on its own, where it's like um it had like its own like subway system and stuff. It actually felt bigger than Denver. It's crazy. I think it must have been hobby, because it was like I wasn't traveling out of country. I was traveling. It was just a layover to like a transfer point. It might have been intercontinental though. I just know I got off the plane and was like, oh, I'm in like Houston, and it was cool. And then I know Houston from making designs for them, like for a lot of locations and stock keychains and stuff. where we draw like that ball. Like there's like that. It's got all these different points. It's like a big tower. And I've had to draw that and like the cityscape a bunch. I should really learn that. Okay, so it's probably Bush Intercontinental. Yeah, that was a crazy airport. It felt like I could have probably spent like a year there. But yeah, like most of my travel out of state lately, well, now it's like non-existent, but most of it was for business, like for my day job. Let's see. So, and save up enough money. Yeah, so I've had to draw like that. I can't remember what it's called, but it's like it's really cool. I don't know. It looks like it kind of looks like a little bit like the Space Needle, but it's like flat and it's on like a tube. But yeah, I've had to draw that a bunch. Yeah, and then yeah, but I do have a friend from college who teaches at a college up there. Ooh, that's right. I kind of knew I recognized your name handle from BIPT days. No, we don't do BIPT anymore, but I still talk to Kevin a lot. Yeah. But I was like, I kind of recognized your name handle, and I'm like, this feels like a BIPT. Yeah. My friend goes to Houston all the time. His wife has family there. Nice. And then, yeah, that's downtown. Cool. But yeah, so I have a friend who teaches at like the university up there, and she hired me to do some illustrations for her a while ago. And on the phone, I was like, "How's Houston?" She's like, "It's lovely. I love Houston." And I was like, "Really? Like, is there anything you don't like?" And she's like, "No, no, no. I like love Houston." And then like she was like very like pro Houston on the phone, and then it was like an hour later, I got a text message from her where she's like, Houston's cool. There's things I don't like about it, but she's like, but you just never say anything negative about Texas in Texas at a workplace. I was like, whoa, I didn't know. I just thought that was fascinating. Where I was like, she was worried like if she said anything like slightly like I don't know about this part of Houston, like at work, like she'd lose her job. I just thought that was I don't know. I don't know if that was hyperbolic. Is it like that there? I don't know. You got to tell me. D&D burritos. See now, Frank, you're talking burritos. You're talking my language. We could have a burrito conversation. Is it true? She was saying it's true. The whole you don't talk bad about Texas in Texas. Yeah, I mean it makes sense. Depends on who you say that to. Yeah, I get it though. There's a certain amount of California pride. Um, that's weird. It's like if you're Californian, you can kind of talk crap about California, but if somebody's outside of California talking crap about California, it's hard for a Californian to like take it seriously. Even though we do say like and dude and well, depending on which side of the state you are, because there is a whole like there used to be, especially in music, like a whole Northern California versus Southern California thing. And it's only really been a contest like according to Southern California. I don't think Northern California really cares. But anyhow, let's see here. But my knowledge of like even the Bay Area in California is pretty bad too. Dude, I need to try these D&D burritos. Do they have yeah, I got to go to Texas at some point. Just sounds fun. I also have to say, like, man, it gets very expensive in California, in the LA area. And I've heard there's like a pretty mass migration to Texas, which I'm sure locals probably don't like. Bunch of Californians showing up. Okay. Let's see stuff. Okay. Speaking of California, back to California is in my script. Yeah, I was gonna joke that like my obsession with Austin probably is not very strange. Um, oh man, all Cali moved to Austin. Yeah, I think what happened was originally we all moved to Portland, which I did too. I lived in Portland like back in the BIPT days. Um, and then we were like, the weather here is terrible. So we moved back to California. And then everybody moved to Austin. And I'm wondering if now they'll be like, the weather here is terrible and move back to California. But the problem is, like, it's not like you can live anywhere. Oh, I forgot about that. That's another memory from Texas. Like when I was a kid, there were tornado warnings, and that was crazy because like I've never lived in an area where there's tornadoes. Like here in California, if there's like an earthquake, it's just like meh, yeah, there's an earthquake because like that's what we get. We get earthquakes and then fires. Like on the side of Southern California that we're in, it's like yeah, half the city's on fire. um, yeah, so that's funny. Sorry, all the Austinites hate it. It's changing a lot. Yeah. When I moved to Portland, I remember it was like kind of like right before a bunch of Californians moved to Portland, and there was a growing kind of anti-Californian thing. The funny thing though was a lot of the people who were like super anti-Californian were ex-Californians who had already moved to Portland like years prior, and then we're kind of like, oh, we hate all those Californians because but a lot of them were Californians. I don't know. I wonder if it's kind of like that. But yeah, I could see like, I wonder what it is about Austin that draws people. I mean, like for me, it's literally just South by Southwest, and the art scene sounds really cool up there. But I don't know. And also property, like anytime property costs are low compared to California and you got a good art scene, it's like always going to be appealing. Is there a bit of that in Houston? I would imagine Houston's got to be pretty like just all over the place because it's such a major city. I'd imagine you have like a whole diaspora of all kinds of people, you know? Okay, so I'm trying to think. I think for this to have emotional impact, it would be good to have like kind of this panel, but sort of reflecting that a lot of time has passed, and maybe she's growing frustrated in this. Not a lot of time. I just want it to be like a different pose, slightly head forward, maybe. Let's see. Yeah, I think that'll work. Like if it's almost like that. Yeah. Very artsy musical scene, open to all. Well, it makes sense that like Austin and Portland are very similar. Like they both have like a keep blank weird statement. Like I know Austin has keep Austin weird, Portland has had keep Portland weird. So it makes sense. Houston is very diverse, huge oil and gas scene, lots of engineers from all over. Yeah, and then you guys probably have a little bit of the culture we have in the Antelope Valley, even though it's a much larger city, obviously. But like aerospace is huge out here because we have like in Lancaster and Palmdale, that's like the area of California I live in. There's actually probably a lot of transitions. Like I bet a lot of people who live in Houston used to live in the AV because there's a NASA up here that's like a huge NASA, and then there's a big aerospace. Like this is one of the biggest aerospace areas in California. That's pretty much most of the residents out here are like are rocket scientists or engineers, and so I'd imagine there's a lot of that. That's what I would imagine, but who knows? Yeah, so like we have a dry lake bed area where the shuttle lands, right? Um, and so we've had the shuttle land in the AV a bunch, which is weird because we're not a major city, you know. So it's like a little strange. But you guys have like legit like launched and landed, like Houston's aerospace is pretty rad. But what's cool is like because we're also right next to like Edwards Air Force Base, which is a really big Air Force base. So it's like neat because I have a friend who for a long time was like teaching at like this flight instruction school, and they basically taught like every jet pilot like across the nation for like test aircrafts and stuff. And he took me to like their facility, which like I guess like Top Gun was like based on like, and I got to do like a test flight in there in like a multi-million-dollar like um you know jet airplane test simulator, which I very quickly crashed because the thing I never really thought about with those when flying a plane, which I have never done, but in the simulation, you don't really think about like the math, at least I didn't, of like how quick you're traveling. So like, you know, in this case, you'd start in like pretty much the Rosamond area, right? Like it's like the desert, close to the Mojave Desert, and within like an instant, you're in Oregon, like in like 20 minutes or 10 minutes. Like it's nuts. And then you're out of, you know, like a little further in the flight, you're like out of the US and you're like in hovering over a different country. And it's like, you know, I'm a person who I'm used to like, I get in a car, like in an hour, I'm like, you know, in a potentially a different city, maybe, you know, but but it's very disorienting is all I'm saying on this simulator thing. So that was like one of my big mistakes. And then my other big mistake was I went too high because when you're flying, you have to be, you're not just paying attention to like left and right, but you're actually having to pay attention to up and down. And in a simulator like that, like it's really disorienting. So, and you have to stay kind of within a frame where you're not going to short out your engine because you've gone too high in the atmosphere. And that happened to me. Like, so it's like pretty much the 30 minutes or whatever I got to spend there. I was like in a different area. I had no idea where I was. And I apparently was like in Omaha or something. And I was sputtering out because the engine had died because I had gotten too high in the atmosphere. I was like, yeah, I don't think I could fly a plane very well. And my friend who's an engineer was just like, yeah, you probably wouldn't do well flying a plane. But it was really cool. And it is fascinating. And it's kind of weird, you know, I'm sure. Yeah, totally. I was like trying to be the next Iron Eagle, and instead I was like the guy who I was not top gunning it. I was bottom gunning it. um, I don't know. That would actually be a pretty funny comic where it's like I get like cool fighter pilot like glasses and I put on the helmet and stuff, and like within 5 seconds, like my plane's down and yeah, but it was cool. Yeah, what's interesting about like engineer culture is it's like you grow up in this area and you get used to like meeting friends who like their dads like literally cannot talk about what they work on because like it's just kind of normal for them to be like, yeah, I can't really say what I'm working on. And then like 5 years later or 10 years later, they'll be like, you see that part on the stealth? Like I built that, you know, like, because they can talk about it at that point. Um, that's pretty common out here, but it's a weird culture. It's also funny, and I'm sure this is similar in Houston. But it's like, people who are new to the Antelope Valley because when they hear um, the sound barrier get broken, they like jump because they think it's like a gunshot or something crazy, and it's like any locals here are just like, yeah, that's just a sound barrier. It's not a big one. Frank had a cousin who worked at NASA. I really want to. I don't know. Boeing Museum in Seattle. No, I haven't. I did get to go to Seattle 2 years ago, and I got to go to the Space Needle, and it's I don't know if you guys have been recently, but it's like the Space Needle has a glass. I want to pull up the. I don't even know if I have that photo on here. I should see if I have that photo because it's really cool. I'm gonna pull open my photos real quick. But anyhow, so uh, they remodeled the Space Needle where when you're up there, the whole floor is plexiglass. So you're seeing like the drop, like you're walking over it. It's really disorienting and cool. Um, so I got to see that, and then I got to see the Chihuly gardens, and then I got to like walk around downtown a little bit, but I didn't get to go to Boeing. Um, that would be really cool. I do know. I think they stole the spruce goose. Is that true? Did they steal it from my Long Beach people? Because the spruce goose used to be in Long Beach, like right by the Queen Mary. Oh, I should show. I gotta find this picture. I'm gonna look and see if I can find it. But there's a couple really cool photos I have from Seattle. And I'm not sure if they'll be here or not because they might be on my phone, which I can't get right now. You can see them on Instagram though. If you scroll down enough on my Instagram, Joshua Kemble, there's a couple photos of me in Seattle, like at the top of the Space Needle. But there's one where I'm like laying down above the whole thing, and it's pretty cool. Let me see. You know what? I'll pull it from Facebook. Hold on a second. I want to show this off because it is a really cool. It is a really cool photo. So let me see if I can find it. Let me see if I can find those photos. I know this makes like for very entertaining things where I'm like, hold still while I hunt for a photo, but it's well worth it if I can track it down. It is pretty cool. It was like a trip from a couple years back, but it was a extremely rad, kind of amazing trip. I'm wondering if I can find it. If not, who knows? My goodness, having to scroll back. Benji was just saying, I'm sorry, did I just say Benji? I just saw a picture of my son Benji and said Benji, but what I meant to say was Chris, my friend Chris Galagua, just said, I like the angles in these panels. You do? I wonder if that was kind of sarcastic because it was like kind of like that at that point. I was trying to find the pictures I have of Seattle since it got brought up, but I don't know if I'm going to come across them. So you guys might just have to pan. Yeah, there's too much to go through. Alas, I've made too many comics. That's the problem. Perhaps this will not happen. Yeah, I'm just going to have to pause on the finding the cool Space Needle picture. Yep. No luck. Oh, would be so good though. Oh well. I know I could find it on my Instagram, which is my phone, very quickly, but it's just not likely to happen. Anyhow, it's very cool. It's a cool experience. They basically modified it. Ooh, maybe I can find it under albums. I know one of them was like a profile picture, so I'll find that at least at minimum. I can find that. Ooh, here it is. Haha. Okay. I have found that photo. Okay, so I'm going to throw it in. This has been well built up. Are you guys ready? Check this out. That was me at the top of the Space Needle, all dressed up in my rad suit. What do you think? Did you guys do that? It was beyond cool. It's weird though because it's a little different. You're right. It's similar to what they did with Sears Tower, except that it rotates. So, like, the entire floor moves while you're on it. So you're not only looking down, but like the city's moving. It's really cool. And then there is a part out on the edge that's similar to the Sears Tower thing where you can lean forward on a glass panel. And at that point, you're just looking at the city and you see nothing. It's like free falling. It's really cool. So I'm just saying, yeah, it was amazing. It was a little tough to have like like try to have a business meeting up there, but it was fun. Still good memory. But I have a whole set of photos from there where we went to like the gum wall and all the other stuff. Yeah. Okay, so let's see here. I still wasn't sure. How are you doing, Chris? What are you doing up? This is just photoshopped. I wish. How are you guys doing? What are you up to, Chris? How are you doing? My buddy Chris Calagua, who equally knows that the Queen Mary was stolen from Long Beach. Long Beach, not the Queen Mary, sorry, the Queen Mary is still there. The Spruce Goose. That was our airplane. They should give it back. And then Chris is a patron of Scott's. Yes, Chris Calagua is also a really talented illustrator, good friend of mine from art school, and a very, very talented illustrator. Check out his art as well. Music Experience Museum is cool. I'm trying to remember if I went to that. I don't think I did, but I guarantee it's probably not as cool as the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is the best for music museums. But Music Experience is probably pretty cool, actually. Okay. I still wasn't sure if I wanted to move. Okay. This is going to flash forward to this. Right? Yeah, that spruce goose needs to come back. I went to the music museum in Seattle. Fun. So the music museum in Seattle is shaped like a guitar, right? Isn't it? I don't know. I'm tell me about it. Tell me details. I want to know. I want to know. Okay. So here we go. We're going to do half the size. And I now is where like having those previous panels is very helpful because I think it's going to be helpful to kind of see where I left off. Yeah, I really do want to kind of I don't know. Chris, what do you think about after COVID? Maybe we do a road trip to Texas. I'm just saying. I mean, once all the freezing stuff's sorted out, I'm also curious. Chris did a really cool kitten rivet interview on Instagram for Justin Keyzon's channel on Instagram. It was pretty good. I enjoyed it. It was fun to hear from you guys. Travel anywhere would be great. Yeah, I was just thinking like Texas isn't that far. At least to 4 Points, would be fun. Like I was saying, though, one of the downsides of Texas is one of the strengths of it too. It's like it's just so wide. Like, you could literally drive to Colorado if you take one route, or you could literally like spend that entire time just traveling one point of Texas, the other point. Um, for those of you Texans in the chats, what's like the best time to visit Texas? If I were gonna like go do vacationy stuff. Show my son like the area or something. Curious. All right. Yeah, Frank Gehry's pretty rad. Yeah, Frank Gehry's pretty amazing. I like. Well, I mean, we're pretty familiar with it out in like the LA area because like that we have like the Disney concert hall and stuff. He makes such unique, cool buildings where they just look kind of bent and warped but designed. It's like this very just unique style. If you do Texas, visit during nice weather, October or spring, April and May, maybe I could go and see if they have a Mayfest thing still. Um, and then summer is good, especially on the island. Nice. South Padre Island. Huh. These are things. These are things. Okay. Yes, to the island in summer. That sounds pretty cool. Yeah, I feel like I wonder if there's going to be like some mass resurgence in travel once if we ever get a hold on like the whole COVID thing. I think people are going to be pretty hungry to like hit the road and like do stuff. Um, and I think we'll all be kind of OCD as well from it because we'll be like eager to like travel and get out there, but at the same time, like be wiping everything with hand sanitizer and like avoiding contact and like barely touching doorknobs and stuff. Not Galveston. I mean, it's nice, but South Padres Beach is way nicer. Okay. Okay. Kind of sounds pretty cool. I still wasn't. We're looking for a quick, short getaway in the country now. And then at Galveston Beach, water is murky, pure is cool, though. Huh. Yeah, for beach, I envy where Chris is at. Like I used to live in that area that my friend Chris lives, and he's pretty close to like HB, which is a very lovely beach. And then it's really close to Seal, which is a really pretty beach. But there's a lot of like beautiful ocean. But then there's Long Beach, which is like beautiful from a distance, like at night if you look at the harbor, but it's not a beach you'd want to swim in, you know. So, but it is interesting when we used to live by the beach, we'd never really go to the beach, not often. It's very strange. I feel like that here too. Like in the AV, there's a lot of really cool desert vistas and stuff that I don't really visit a lot now that I live here. Might not be bad. Like we're right by like the Kill Bill Church, which is pretty awesome. Let's see. And I think they say that's in Texas in the movie, but it's the Antelope Valley. Since I felt yeah, dude. Okay, so Chris has it dead on here. Where he's saying Long Beach is the largest port, so tons of oil sludge. Yeah, so you literally would like die if you swam in Long Beach, but the surrounding beaches are pretty postcard perfect. Yeah, and then, dude, you could film a western in the AV. It's the perfect place to film a western. It's also a really great place for prison scenes, which is why like Seven, at the end of Seven, you know, the whole sequence where it's like, what's in the box? What's in the box? That was the Antelope Valley. Say Anything. There's like a jail scene in that movie that's in the AV. I know, we're like the home of great jail scenes. But it is pretty. I mean, it's one of the few areas in the world that has Joshua trees. So if you want to like feel like you're in like a U2 album, like there's a lot of that. Let's see. And then we have one of the best microbreweries, which Chris, after COVID, we got to check out. But I've been digging it because they've had Crowlers half off. I might have to stop by there tomorrow because they have really good beer. Let's see here. And then back in the day, they filmed a lot of Buffy the Vampire Slayer episodes out here. I think because it's just like there's a lot of dead space, and there's like this really cool old gas station out in the middle of nowhere. That's a great filming shoot because it's like a 1950s, 40s-ish, 50s gas station that hasn't really had a lot of wear and tear because it's like out in the middle of nowhere. So Huntington Gardens are different than Huntington Beach. I don't know where Huntington Gardens are, but I don't think they're in Huntington Beach. We do have, there's like the Huntington Library, but Huntington Beach is like known for kind of its surf areas. and TK Burger. Ah, I miss TK Burger. Chris could probably go there tomorrow. I'm jealous. I'm gonna have to go up to HB and have some TK Burger. But yeah, Huntington's mostly. I don't know if the Huntington Gardens are there. Chris, am I wrong? I don't know. He'd know better. Let's see. I used to live there a long time ago, like on 13th and Orange. Makes me hungry thinking about it because we used to live right by a spot that had like a really tasty deli. It's just the best. I think it's a different library. It's because I'm yeah, I haven't been to Huntington in a while. Nay, the gardens are a different place. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. Yeah, I think it would be hard to visit there too often. It's gotten very touristy. Like it was touristy when I lived there, but it's like really touristy now. So, but what's cool is like Art Supply Warehouse is like right around the corner, and it's one of the best art stores. So yeah. And Mama Soto, nothing to feel bad about. Like, remember when I was thinking that the location of Houston was like on a different side of the state? like, like my conception of any locations outside of places I lived is like insane. So don't worry. Okay. So this is going to be, I don't know what a good sequence here is going to be. I need to pull up previous ones and kind of see. I kind of want to pull back like this shot, but maybe from a different angle. Oh, believe me, you are not the only noob in the sense of geography. I envy people who have a good sense of direction in geography. I don't know, Chris, do you have a good sense of locations and where things are? I think maybe overhead. Overhead shot. I think an overhead shot's the way to go for this. Might be a little emo, but that's okay. We don't mind emo. So I'm feeling pretty good about the progress I'm making. Like I said, I'm not necessarily going to push to do a full page tonight. Um, it's always an interesting thing where it's like when you're doing art and illustration, it's important to kind of like try to push yourself to the limit, you know? Right? I always forget that too. Um, yeah, and Texas has so much like range in, geography where it's like they have lakes and rivers and beaches and it's you know, it's kind of like California too, where people think of California and they think beaches and they don't think like deserts and forests and mountains and plains, all the things from the God Bless America song. um, okay, so wait, Texas has water? Well, apparently, from like what I was talking about at the top, like maybe Texas has water, but it's not real water. It's fake water, right? Because it can light on fire when it's frozen. We do it. I was about to say that punchline too. And then I was like, yeah, it might be too soon. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, California has a lot of drought issues. Does Texas have droughts? Can't imagine. Let's see here. Okay. This is gonna be a very emo shot. So anyhow, like what I was saying is I might not finish this entire page tonight because, like, once again, you want to push yourself as an artist to the limit, but not to where you're going to burn out. And I have been doing a lot of 4-hour nights, and I think doing a little bit of an earlier turn in might be a smart one, especially South Texas has droughts. Yeah, that makes sense. And then there is like literal cactus, right? Texas, like here, I'm gonna sketch it real quick, but like the fun Texas, I mean the fun cactus where it's got like that and the little things. Right? You guys have like literal cactus like that? Because I do remember cactus candy as a kid was a big thing. And it was actually pretty tasty. I wonder if it's still good now, if I would like it. I also remember this was a really beautiful memory from being a kid living in Texas. We lived, like I said, outside of Fort Worth. It was like in kind of a farm area right by a lake. But outside of our house, there were like rolling hills of this plant. Like it's like a flower, a wildflower called Indian paintbrush. And it was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. It's just like these beautiful red flowers. They kind of look like poppies, but like red. And I mean, that was gorgeous. Like when you get like the right day and kind of head out there, and you'd see these just rolling hills of like this red just flowing. Like it was really pretty. Um, yeah. But I remember as a kid, I ran out and like picked one, and then my mom kind of chewed me out because she's like, it's kind of like equivalent to, like I live right near this giant California poppy field, and it's really pretty, but you cannot pick the poppies because they're like, a wildflower that's protected. So, but yeah, is that the state flower? I can't remember. I'm trying to remember my Texan stuff. I feel bad for like grilling you guys on Texas. It's just fun to have um to learn things about different states and stuff. There's a pug sleeping here. His little legs out. And a pug sleeping here. All right. Oh, blue bonnets. That's right. And then the state animal isn't an aardvark, is it? I don't know. That would be pretty rad if it was. But I feel like it's a bird of some kind. Like there's a quail. No, quail is California. Um, Blue Jay? I don't know. I think it's funny that I started this stream talking about Texas just from like because I had read in the news the thing about people like doing that test, and we've ended up like having this long discussion about Texas itself, and it's kind of neat. It's cool how that works out. Oh, it's the Roadrunner. I'm digging the I'm digging the stuff though. It's making me want Texas stuff. So, question regarding a cliche that I think is pretty darn true, and maybe you guys can confirm. If I were going to like, let's say I had a stopover in Houston or something, where would be like the best place in your estimation to get like really good barbecue? Or are you guys like not a fan? I can't imagine like not being a fan of barbecue because I love barbecue food, but I'm just kind of curious like where would be the place for like if someone like Chris or myself, like a California kid, wanted like some authentic Texan barbecue. Okay. And I'm not actually ruling out this bed because I don't need to. These are thumbnails. Okay. It's going to be like stacks of stuff here. The state bird is northern mockingbird. I like barbecue. The best place is someone's house. Yeah, that's probably true. But what if I wanted to go to like just one of those crazy like barbecue houses? Okay, here we go. And we're getting there. Okay, so I'm going to basically tone this and then I think wrap it for the night because like I said, I ideally would love to get a page done a night, but I'm also not hoping to like totally burn out. And since it's like 1 a.m. and I got work, I think this will kind of be where I call it. Although I'm really loving the conversation. So let's see here. Okay. I do also need to work out this part first. All right, so we got halfway there. Halfway is better than nothing. So halfway through page 101, had a lovely conversation about Texas. Yeah, it's great seeing everybody and hearing from you guys. And I hope you're making really good progress on your creative projects. Thanks for joining me. And like I said, make sure you're subscribed. You hit that bell so you get notifications because I do these live streams about every night. And so, you know, if our times line up, then like, you know, feel free to stop by and hang out in the chats and get some art done. And yeah, so Mama Soto, thanks for joining. Frank, thanks for joining. Chris Caligua, thank you for joining. And feel free to stop by the next time I do a stream. It's been a lot of fun. I forgot to mention Ronnie too, who also jumped out there too. And yeah, so that'll do it for this stream. If you guys haven't too, make sure you pick up 2 Stories. And while you're at it, actually, you can go check out on Frank's channel. He did a really cool review of 2 Stories, which you can get on Amazon, and it was cool. Thank you for posting that review. And that'll pretty much do it. So, I gotta throw in what Chris, when he heard Roadrunner, made the proper response. Beep beep. I love it. All right. Yeah, I'm glad you caught a bit of the stream too, Chris. So thanks you guys. Yeah, I'll see you guys probably tomorrow or the next stream that you catch. And if you're watching this after the fact, just remember when you burn snow, like actual snow, the reason that it doesn't melt to water if you're holding a flame to like a snowball that's tightly packed is like the extreme heat next to like the extreme cold causes a process called sublimation. So, and actually the real reason is because Chris Caligu and I are planning on taking over the world and controlling the weather. All right. I will see you guys next week, or not next week, probably tonight or tomorrow or one of these days that I'm streaming. And if you haven't yet, too, also check out the 3 Shadows review on the irsagency.com that my friend Scott Strickland and I did before this stream. It was a lot of fun, and it's a really cool show. So, all right, Weather Wizards. Yes. All right. See you guys later. Bye.